I've been racing a lot of single player in my sim racing recently, and I've found that racing against the AI, there's sometimes a lot of very good AI and sometimes some not so good AI. So what I've decided to do is go through 7 of the top sim racing games available at the moment and compare the computer in each of them and see which one is the most fun to race against. So I'll be using some criteria for this one. I've got 5 categories that I'll be judging these sim racing games on. The first one is how easy it is to set up and adjust. The next one is adaptability. If you try and pass the AI suddenly, do they freak out? Do they turn into you? Do they drive off the track? We also have racecraft. Do they attack and defend naturally? We also have consistency. Do they drive the same at every corner or in every car or at every track, or at some corners they're really good and some corners they're not so good? And the final one is everything else. Do they do starts correctly? Do they do pit strategy? Do they make their own mistakes on their own? Things like that. So I'll start with a game that I've been playing a lot of recently because it kind of just came out, and that is Formula 1 24. And to start with, setting up the AI in F1 24 is very easy. You just select a difficulty number. I'd love to see dynamic difficulty like MotoGP 24 or another game later in this list, because choosing a number is hard and it does change game by game. I'm pretty sure in F1 23 I was 92 or something, 94. And in this game I'm 102 or something. So yeah, negative points for this as well, because you have to go through F1 World to select a single player race, which I just hate. Menu makes no sense. Adaptability is not so great in F1. You can move the AI around, but sometimes you can just weave if you're in front of them and they'll just not attempt to pass you at all. You can try and run them off at certain corners as well in a modern F1 racecraft sort of style, but at other corners they'll just try and run the outside with you with the teeniest little bit of overlap and just have a crash with you, which is kind of strange. The racecraft though, I have to say, is fairly good in F1 24. They do attack, they do defend, they use DRS, they use ERS, and they will use it against you. It is very predictable though. You can kind of see when the AI is oh, I'm going to pass you now, and moves over, and when they decide to defend and things like that. Consistency wise, this is actually a lot better than previous games. It's relatively even across the calendar, every track you race against and the corners, apart from Montreal, which you'll gain a full second on them every lap when you drive through the Wall of Champions. It's good, but it could be better. The AI is also really slow under brakes. I found an unrealistic concertina forming every lap at the Monza race that I did, and there's trains that just form way too quickly. I find maybe the DRS is too strong or the slipstream is too strong. It doesn't really look like what F1 racing does in real life. With everything else, cars do make mistakes. They sometimes blow up and drivers will throw it off the road, sometimes at the same corner as other drivers, which is kind of funny. And the starts look really, really good. I think that's a really positive thing until you get to the first corner where they all kind of stack up and you can gain 1,000 spots. And also the AI uses overtake through the first lap now for the starts, which is a positive change over some previous games. The AI also is generally really good with strategy. They will try and use pit strategy quite well. They'll go for the 1 stop generally. They won't try and run 3 stops or something ridiculous for a 20 lap race. The one part where the AI is broken though is wet racing. I did a wet race at Spa and the AI all pitted on the final lap for no reason. It was wet and they were oh, 1 lap to go, let's take another set of wets. And it's I went from 15th to 3rd in an Alpine. It was very strange, but points down for that. The next game to test is Le Mans Ultimate, LMU, and this is a very new sim on this list, and the AI is quite easy to set up. There's a skill level and an aggressiveness setting that you can set, and the adaptiveness that I found adaptability, what am I saying, is generally really good. Sometimes the AI has that R factor wobble if you get alongside them. They kind of wobble around and stuff, but generally they're very confident and they'll run side by side with you. You can bomb them, they'll sit there, they won't freak out and drive off the road. They're generally pretty good. Racecraft, they do go for moves and they do defend. Sometimes they'll try and pass under brakes or into corners as well. The consistency is a little bit inconsistent though. I practiced at Le Mans against them in Le Mans Ultimate, and at the forward chicane I would destroy them every lap, but then we'd get to the Porsche curves and they'd all like gap me by like 3 seconds. So a little bit inconsistent. They do strategy for the long races, and the starts are the best that I've seen probably from most of these games. They look really, really aggressive and natural looking. The cars spread out everywhere on the rolling start, but the AI is almost too good at starts, I would say. They jump on the green like a robot. There's like no reaction time, so it's really hard to beat them to the first corner. And they do make mistakes. I sometimes watch them throw it off the road. I watched another Toyota fall backwards when they kind of got pushed out wide, and sometimes they'll go in too hot and cut a chicane, which is pretty cool. I need to say at this point, I don't want to review Le Mans Ultimate, but I had a really terrible time playing this game. I got like 1 frame per like 30 seconds on the menus for some reason in the game. The game itself was working fine, but the overlays, like the menus broken, and I turned the graphics as low as it could go. The loading times were ridiculous. I'm disappointed in how difficult it was to set up. It was frustrating to deal with. I will say the new patch, the replays look really good, so that's a positive. The next game is ACC, and in terms of how easy it is to set up, it's very easy. You set skill and aggressiveness like before. You can also set up pit stop requirements, how long the race is, so you can force them into a pit strategy if you want. The adaptability of ACC is quite good. They don't want to make contact with you, so they do kind of get out of the way if you show the nose, but it looks pretty natural. They do have the R factor wobble a little bit, but they do go for moves. Racecraft wise, they do attack and defend. Sometimes they'll go for moves on each other. I was racing a group of cars and a car in front went on a pass for the car in front of them, and because of that they were outside on the next corner, and then I could go take the inside, and that was kind of fun racing, I guess. Consistency was very good. I thought they were pretty consistent everywhere. Probably the most consistent out of all the sims I've done. They do strategy through the game. It looks pretty natural with AI pitting on different laps through a race, which is cool. And the starts, they do start kind of weirdly. They look very robotic. They just kind of hold their 2 lines and they don't jump as well as you do, so you can make up bulk positions on the start. So points down for the start. The next game is Automobilista 2. AMS2 is very easy to set up. Like before, you have a skill and an aggression setting, and the one thing to be aware of is that it also works with oval and road racing, like another sim we'll get to in a sec. And you can download lots of liveries from our website, overtake.gg. So you can put like a livery pack in the game. I actually was running like an early 2000s F1 skin pack, which was really, really cool. Adaptability is very good. They won't drive into you if you bomb them. They'll hold the outside and try and run around you, and they do race very well, racecraft. They go for passes, they defend. I found them defending a lot into big braking zones and holding the inside line, forcing you to go around the long way. Consistency, they're very consistent, and the starts look very good and very natural. I would say, like, honestly, sometimes they do make mistakes and they miss apexes and stuff. It's not the best AI for AMS2. It's kind of so-so, but it does the job fairly well. Next up is RaceRoom. RaceRoom is fairly easy to set up. You can select which AI you want to race against. So if you want to feel like a wizard, you can race against a full field of TCR cars and put yourself in a DTM car. And there is adaptive difficulty in this as well. So you can actually just select adaptive difficulty and supposedly it will adjust to your speed. I struggled to get this working in my time testing RaceRoom. I did a couple of races and it was kind of like, it was always too slow, but this is a plus, I would say. I just set the AI to about 100 at the end and just raced against it there. Adaptability, they react fairly well. They do get out of the way sometimes, but otherwise they don't move too much. And racecraft is generally really good. They go for moves and they actually went for some crazy stuff. I was racing the TCR car and the car behind me took it like 3 wide into a really high speed corner, which was really, really good. Consistency wise, this really depends on the car and the track. Everything can be kind of different depending on the combo, but I generally found it okay. In my testing at Salzburgring, the AI was really good, but they were like giga at the final corner and then kind of average at the turn 1 chicane. And then I also did a bit of testing at Lausitzring in the DTM, and the AI just like got to the first corner and just completely freaked out on the race start. Like they were weaving left and right. It was wild. So it really depends on the combo how good the AI is. The second last sim I'm going to check is Gran Turismo 7. And I'm going to be focusing on Sophie here. because the normal AI in Gran Turismo 7 is very, very bad. It's terrible. It's the worst AI out of all of them. But Sophie is really good. How easy is Sophie to set up? Very easy. You just go to like select a race and you select Sophie, and there's like 3 difficult, it's like easy, medium, or hard. Pretty sure it's like 1 chili or 2 chilies or 3 chilies. And then your race. There's very easy, little to worry about. I will say though, there's not a lot of Sophie racing through the game. You can't put it into like long endurance races. You can't put it in the single player campaign for most of the challenges. So I'd like to see Sophie implemented into more of the racing. Adaptability is awesome. The AI reacts really well to you. They'll lean on you sometimes, but they'll generally give you space, and it just looks really natural. And Racecraft is awesome. They go for moves, they defend. They're not scared of going for moves at corners that you wouldn't normally attack on. Like if they have a gap, they'll go for it, which is really, really cool, especially compared to games like F1 24. The consistency I've found is generally very good. It's sort of the same no matter where you drive, but otherwise, Sophie doesn't really do like pit strategy or like anything else. There's just short races against Sophie, and I feel like I need to acknowledge that. It's marks down. There's not much Sophie to race against. They need to let it be a little bit faster because it's slightly too easy to beat, and they need to bring Sophie to the rest of the game. The final note I'll make on Sophie is that it is a very cute face. It shoots you little smiley faces when you like race against them. If you pass them, they'll get like angry at you. And if they start driving away from you, they'll be like, whoa, and very happy. It's very cute. I love it. So points up. The final sim I'm going to look at is iRacing, and iRacing is really difficult to set up the AI. I would say setting up a single race is by far the hardest of all the sims, and working out what the AI settings are really difficult. And you can set up a championship and everything, and it's very difficult, but it is very powerful. I would say like you can set up a really interesting kind of race. You can customize different kind of characteristics of the AI, and they do different things in different ways. It's super detailed, way more than the other games, but it is very, very confusing. One thing that you can do that I've actually not done until I started testing it for this is that you can download AI rosters from Trading Paints. And I had a modern NASCAR and like a modern V8 supercar roster to race against. It automatically downloads it into the game. There's a heap to download. I thought that was really good. Another thing to note is that oval racing is in this. So if you want, you can go like to Talladega or Daytona and go draft racing. Adaptability, I found the AI in iRacing really natural if you do throw a nose in. I was racing at Bathurst, I threw the nose in at the cutting, and the AI was like dealing with it really great. They weren't crashing or turning in on me, they were just kind of holding the outside. Sometimes they're almost a little bit too confident. If you try and pass them, they'll like leave you 1 car width of room on the inside of the road and try and pinch you there, which is pretty cool. It's awesome to race against, but it is sometimes very tricky. They do sometimes do some wacky stuff and they freak out completely. I was racing at Bathurst and basically David Reynolds crashed in the first lap at McPhillamy Park and just stopped the car, and then like 10 cars just stopped behind him and just sat there waiting. So that was kind of weird. Racecraft wise, they do go for moves and defend. It's so natural looking that it's hard to find when they're doing this. Like, so it's not as obvious like the F1 games. If they get a run on you, they'll show the nose and stuff like this. And oval racing was really natural as well. They'll often like be confident pushing you, and you know, you can push them, they'll deal with it okay. They'll also completely hang you out to dry if you're going too slow. So that was kind of cool. The consistency is generally very good, I've found, but not perfect. In the Bathurst race I did, the AI has no idea how to navigate McPhillamy Park at the top of the hill. They were like a second off me through there, but were absolute rockets down the hill for some reason. So sometimes a little inconsistent. Otherwise, there is strategy. You can introduce like tire swap races for certain classes. But a lot of the racing, you can't actually introduce compulsory pit stops in iRacing, so they won't do strategy unless you like have a small fuel tank or something like that. So you often won't see them executing strategy fairly well. But yeah, the starts look really good and really natural. They don't all stop at the first corner. They brake kind of normally where you expect them to, and they do make mistakes sometimes. As I said before, I watched a car just drive it in the fence at Bathurst on their own, and it looked very natural. So to rank all these sims is actually quite difficult. My first note is that they're all pretty much the same. What? Especially like ACC, AMS2, LMU, iRacing, and RaceRoom. They're really similar in how the AI reacts and drives. Some tracks and some cars are less consistent than others, but they're all kind of a good experience and pretty fun to race against with the AI. I will say F1 24, probably not the best. That was not a good sim AI-wise, but I will say that it does a lot of strategy and a lot of in-car systems like DRS and ERS that the other games, the AI doesn't do. So it does that fairly well, but the racing is kind of iffy. The other game is GT7 with Sophie, and I would actually say Sophie is the best AI that I've driven against. It's better than all the others, but it's only in some tracks in the game, and it's only in like arcade racing, so it's like you never use it in GT7. So yeah, I don't know. All the sims are very good, all the sims are not so good. It's really up to you. They're all flawed. All the sims are deeply flawed, but they're also very, very good at the same time. If you have strong thoughts, if you play a certain game and you're like, iRacing's the best, or RaceRoom's the best, or I love F1 24, let me know in the comments if you've had very funny experiences racing against the computer. Otherwise, you can leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and you can subscribe to Overtake for more sim racing videos that we'll be putting out in the future. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.